Welcome to another episode of Exploring the Vintage NFT Space podcast with ZeroG. Today, I'm excited to have with me Juan Galt. Thanks for joining me today.
Sure, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, certainly a pleasure. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Right on.
Yeah, so you have to me one of my favorite like of the 100-ish supply rare Pepes, Pepe Thug Life, which has a great animation. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we do that, let's chat about your introduction to crypto, how you found out about it, and then what intrigued you enough or motivated you enough to actually, go ahead and purchase some.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was a 20-year-old broke kid in Canada.
Mhm.
And but I was really into libertarianism. I was really into philosophy and psychology. So I was just consuming a lot of that content, of like libertarian content from that era. And yeah, one of these libertarian influencers, Stefan Molyneux, actually, if anybody recognizes that name, he's kind of a controversial character these days. I mean, he always kind of was, but I
Yeah.
would listen to his stuff, and he started talking about Bitcoin very early. I think, probably tail end of 2012, 2013. That's when he started talking about it. And so, yeah, like, again, I had no money. So I at some point I threw like $100 at it. The price was
Mhm.
like $7 Canadian. So I threw 100 Canadian at it. And I watched it go to $30 and then come back down and just kind of held. Um, and but it made sense to me as a libertarian from that I had like already heard about Austrian economics and such,
Mhm.
that a hard supply money would be interesting, and then it also would be potentially very interesting speculatively, but also politically kind of revolutionary. And so I was engaged. I was always kind of I guess at that time I was definitely considered myself an anarchist or an ANCAP of sorts. And so it was, perfectly on brand to get into Bitcoin. So, but then, we had like that whole bear market, which was fucking brutal. Like, if you think this bear market's rough, you weren't there in 2014, 2013, 2012. It was like 2 years of like zero movements, like $1 for 2 years. I thought it was dead. And then some asshat convinced me that silver had intrinsic value and Bitcoin didn't. And so I kind of forgot about my Bitcoin, and then my computer died and I never recovered it. And then by the time the price went up, the wallet was gone. I had overridden the hard drive and it was gone.
Oh man, that's a bummer. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a similar introduction in the sense that I was I was familiar with the hard money and the libertarian concepts and everything. And the thing that I think even people to this day miss, like we have people like Peter Schiff who still bang the table about eventually going on back onto a gold or a silver or some sort of monetary metal situation. I don't think that's ever going to happen
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, all of those are predicated on trust. Like in the U.S., we have that the gold reserves haven't been independently audited in what, like 60, 70 years. And like we've seen how corrupt and co-opted all these other institutions have become. Would you even trust a quote unquote independent audit of their reserves? Hell no.
I mean, he's like a horse and buggy maximalist,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the utility aspect too is like we have to rely on trust and these vaults and all this other stuff. I mean, electronic money is the future. So get wrecked,
I,
bro.
I yeah, I agree. And I think, gold is cool. I mean, I think it's okay to have some gold just in case, but you can't send gold over, you can't transact with gold at distance.
Yeah,
And the world
exactly.
economy is increasingly digitized and remote. And so the fuck, how are you going to pay with gold? You're going to end up with a bank.
Mhm.
And why would you have a bank when you have all these custody and risk issues, when it seems like there's paths to scale Bitcoin that give you better assurances and much faster speed and better upside? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
not into it, like, I have some precious metals, but like, they're shiny rocks. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I mean it's not practical, and this. I mean the other use case that was huge several times for Bitcoin in what is capital flight. So we saw back with the Cyprus bank bail-in, we saw a huge pump off that news, and then the Chinese fleeing the capital restrictions in their country too. That was a big motivator for the price to move several times too. I mean, you can't jump on a plane with a roll of a couple tubes of gold eagles and think you're going to make it through, and make
Yeah.
it to the other side. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot easier to flee a country with Bitcoin than with anything else. And Ukraine is another example of that. We saw a lot of that in Ukraine. A lot of Bitcoin actually being used, and crypto in general being used for capital flight out of So I mean, there's a lot of niche use cases that Bitcoin isn't perfect either, right? That's a whole conversation, but um, yeah, I think the digital age is you can't roll this back. There's so many things that are going to get dematerialized. I just published some tweets about an article that I wrote about how banks are getting dematerialized and how they're a lot of like their business model is in itself being obsoleted because bank runs are now moving at the speed of light. And so,
yeah,
within a day, Silicon Valley Vault had $40 billion removed from its deposits, which was 25% of its capital, which was a
wow,
world historical record of in terms of the amount of
banking,
capital that flew overnight. So if you can lose 25% of your reserves overnight over a rumor, that was a credible rumor, but a rumor nonetheless, then these banks have a flank wide open that they didn't quite have back in the paper age, where you had to actually storm the bank and try to get your cash out. It's like it was understandable that they might not even have that much cash on hand, but with digital payment rails, like it's just all it takes is a bad enough rumor, and people will wipe out your bank reserves. And so, what does a fractional reserve banking model look like in an era where bank runs can wipe you out overnight?
yeah, the speed of information and speed of transactions like really amplified that. I think the other thing that's going to also amplify that too is we're just now seeing like more awareness of some of the things that are like some of the risks in the financial system itself. One thing I've been like I was really astounded that I missed at the time it was passed, but Dodd-Frank uh, uh, put into law bank bail-ins as one of the as a potential measure or remedy in the U.S. too. So
Wow.
a lot of people or normies don't really understand the huge risks that are involved in just having capital in the bank. So, like we saw the Fed, try and like kind of pretend to commit as if they would backstop, depositors, but that's the other thing that like there's not enough money. They'd have to end up printing if it got serious, which also,
Yeah, and that means that the Fed is the ultimate backstop and counterparty of all your bank deposits.
mhm.
And now the Fed doesn't need the banks for distribution either, because they rolled out Fed now for banks, but
Yeah,
that's a step away from rolling out a
disintermediating
Fed
the
now
entire.
app.
Yeah,
Yeah, if
yeah, they'll
you know
disintermediate the entire commercial banking sector.
yeah, they have no need for the banking system anymore. And then customer support is already remote in general. And you have AI coming into the picture, which is going to dramatically improve customer support, remote customer support. So like we are very close to a FedNow banking app that has pretty solid UX, pretty solid support, and you have the ultimate counterparty, direct balance sheet with the Fed. It has the same regulatory requirements as all other banks. So why do you need banks? And then the Fed can actually potentially even offer you better return your savings if that's what they wanted to do than a bank can, because banks can't. They don't offer shit for savings, and so I think banks are actually facing existential risks, and
I think
and
they're planning
uh,
on it.
I don't know if they're planning it, because there's a lot of different sides of banks, but yeah, I think it's hard to say who's controlling what or planning what. Some degree, technology is just driving the show, running the show.
In a
I don't know.
well, depending on the model they go with in a CBDC future, they don't need these commercial or retail banks to do monetary issuance. It's all directly from the Fed itself. So at that point, like they don't actually have a real function, and it allows them to centralize their control, which is I think really what they're going after. I think one of the other end games besides being able to have like social control and restrictions programmed into the money is also being able to put like negative interest rate on your deposits and all sorts of shenanigans they can't get away with really right now, because you still have the ability to move from one bank to another, right? So anyway, just interesting stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, sorry, I went down a little rabbit hole there, but but good times. Yeah, so definitely interesting. Yeah, I remember the that those early bear markets were pretty savage. But yeah, so you got in pretty early. That's terrible that you lost your first wallet, but yeah,
I'm
what
over
can you
it.
do?
I
Yeah,
mean, then the Bitcoin price went up to $1,000, and I was like, okay, clearly this is a really interesting opportunity. I don't really have many prospects, like I've always been kind of a smart guy, but I had really shit grades in school. So there's no real prospect for me entering university. I hadn't have any money, but I didn't have capacity to get really serious loans or anything like that. So I just went into Bitcoin, and then I started doing journalism. I wrote for a bunch of companies. I worked for Bitcoin Magazine, Cointelegraph, Bitcoin.com, BitcoinNews.com. No, news.bitcoin.com was the other one, or something like that. News.btc, something like that.
oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, so I had kind of like a 3 to 4 year journalism career, and then I got into trading, and then started flipping shit coins and that whole sort of thing, and trading. I mean, I've had kind of like a very crypto and Bitcoin native career. Um, yeah, and then eventually I got into Rare Pepes casually, just fucking around, and yeah.
Yeah, how'd you find out about Counterparty back in the day?
How did I find out? I mean, I heard about it. I don't know how I think I might have just seen something on Twitter or like in some Telegram group. And so I found my way to the Pepe trading Telegram group while it was happening. And it was fascinating. I liked Pepe the Frog a lot. I think, I had experience making memes like many people of my age and my generation do. And so I was like, I gotta submit something. So I made PEPETHUGLIFE, which is this little character. Obviously the original comes in color and it's a GIF, but
Yeah,
it's this guy. It's I think card number like 300 or so. So it's like NFT number like 300. And and at that moment, like there was no assumption of value, right? People were like excited about it, but they weren't trading. Like the most expensive card I should have bought was like $100, and it was the Pepe Rare, which is a beautiful 3D image made by
yeah.
Sean.
Hmm.
And I really, really regret not buying it because it's trading for thousands of dollars now, and it's a beautiful card. And yeah, but I just we just traded it, and I ended up with a little collection, and then kind of it was kind of like an environment where I could go, and like when the world was going to shit and I was just didn't want to look at it, I would just go and stare at frogs. And even today, there's times when I go into a group and I see rare peppers that I've never seen. There's 1,700 of them. So um it was it's just impressive the kind of the amount of art that was generated, and how many of them are so funny and so relevant to, I guess, the subculture that we're part of, that they're funny, and they're still funny. So I totally love that collection, and kind of proud to be a part of it. And then of course years later, the whole Ethereum crowd discovered Rare Pepes and started throwing just wads of cash at them. So started playing
Yeah,
that game, and it's been good.
yeah. Well, so you said you had already like done some digital art, some memes and stuff. What was your background in doing that?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, my late teens and my early 20s, I did a lot of art, like oil painting and stuff. So in my teens, I took art classes, so I knew how to draw, I knew how to paint, I knew how to do oil painting, a new perspective. And then through being a journalist, and and working in digital media, I learned Photoshop, and so I just kind of pieced it together. I don't have any art pieces that I can show off offhand. I can send some to you later if you want to sort of post some, but or just edit them on the video. But yeah, I mean, I had kind of like a small art background too, but at that point, I was already sort of Bitcoin like a Bitcoin journalist. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, and just out of, I mean, to me, it's fascinating, like speaking to someone who's actually done like legit journalism. So, were you pretty much able to like report on whatever was interesting in the crypto space at the time, or how did that work with your stories? Were you given
Yeah,
assignments?
yeah.
Or?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just like bring content because these companies dependent on ad revenue, and so they needed news stories. And I, as a community member, I was tapped into the what was going on. So I would just choose a story. I think maybe like roll it by them. Often, like I didn't even need to roll it by them. I would just go pursue the story, come back with it, and then give them a draft, and they'd be like, yeah, okay, do light editing on it and publish it. And depending on engagement, they would get traffic. Bitcoin Magazine would pay like $50 an article, and then Cointelegraph would pay like $30 an article. But sometimes if it did really well, depending on traffic, I could get, there was bonuses. So I think the most I ever made was like $500 an article, which goes to show journalism doesn't pay for shit, because each article would take minimum 2 days of like
Yeah.
8-hour days of research and writing and such. So plus you got to go in, get interviews and such. So digital media in that era was just very grindy. Still is very grindy. But yeah, like I got to cover a lot of stories. I wouldn't call myself like journalism in the real sense, no, whatever the fuck they think they are these days. Journalism is investigative work and like actual, counter establishment journalism, right? Like reporting on the secrets of the powerful, right? That's what journalism really is. But you need a budget for that. And so this was more like tech reporting and tech journalism, where it was more like get interviews, build opinions, and publish interesting analysis and doing reporting. So I would say I was more of a reporter than a journalist in that sense, but it's kind of neither here nor there.
No, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it has to. I mean, it has to be a really fascinating career to look back on, seeing as how you had, such an intimate role with you know, the the stories that rolled out through the crypto, that early crypto, you know, ecosystem in that time. I mean, like you were saying, one of the things that really attracts me, or makes a lot of the like Rare Pepes and some of this other stuff more meaningful to me, is that this is capturing elements of that crypto culture that are they're relevant to me. I mean, it speaks to me more than like any mainstream stuff that you see out there. So I don't know. I think it's really powerful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting industry. I mean, even today, after all these years, I still love the role that Bitcoin has in the world. I mean, I've heard so many arguments, and I've consumed so much content about it, that there's not a whole lot of Bitcoin content that I'm like really consumed by. A lot more interested in AI these days and such, but there's always a Bitcoin angle to every story.
Sure.
And I think for example, the El Salvador story is probably the most interesting one, and actively developing that, that I definitely keep an eye on. But yeah, it's just very profound technology. I mean, it's a lifestyle technology at this point, I think.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
yeah.
I think for me, if someone's into Bitcoin, it definitely signals that they're most likely a little bit more like ahead of the curve in terms of where things are going. I mean, you definitely have to be more of a risk taker in order to even entertain that. It's still, I mean, as crazy as that sounds, in 2023, there's so few people who own like Bitcoin and crypto worldwide.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, just out of curiosity, do you know the latest on El Salvador? And then we'll talk about Pepe Thug Life. I just, since you mentioned it, it was a story I thought was really fascinating, but I haven't kept up with.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've written 2 articles about it. One of them doing kind of like a big like bird's eye view analysis of the political situation. That's at juangalt.com. And then another one which is called the domino, like first domino of hyper Bitcoinization. That was a more in-depth story where I went to El Salvador and for adapting Bitcoin last year in November, and then I talked to a bunch of people, got a view of the landscape on the ground, and like what are the startups, where are the VCs, where's the adoption at, what is the public opinions. It's a long form kind of deeper piece, and that's gotten a lot of traction. That's pinned on my Twitter. It's also at juangalt.com. And then I also interviewed Jeremy from Escaping Salvador, a guy who's sort of his main job is to help people migrate and get their legal situation sorted out in El Salvador, as well as get real estate, incorporate, or whatever you need if you want to like actually migrate or set up shop in El Salvador. So that podcast is going to be coming out on my show, my podcast, the Juan Galt podcast. By the time you publish this, it'll probably already be out. And that's on like the main podcasting platforms, except Apple and Spotify. So like I'm not launching there yet, but any other app like Fountain or Podcast Addict, etc., you'll be able to find it there. And also on my website, juangalt.com, you can see it there too. So so that's an interesting story that has kind of it tries to answer a lot of the latest questions. And of course, we have the bonds, right? The Bitcoin bond stuff coming out, the securities laws. I think they got confirmed now. So, El Salvador is very exciting. I'm if things continue to go at the way that they're going, we're going to see El Salvador become a kind of Dubai nation. And that's huge. That's very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. It's the most exciting thing really in right now. Like I'm tempted to just go over there and move there, or at least spend a lot more time there. And it's not far, so we have our own little city on the hill here in America, which is very cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I remember reading about that and being psyched about, again, the other thing I thought was amazing is how they stood up to the intense international pressure of the banking system, trying to, write all these FUD pieces and these basically, scare them into submission when they made that move with Bitcoin. So yeah, it's definitely. I'll check out your work. That sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's impressive that they managed to hold back the IMF, the NGOs, American establishment pressure,
Yeah, I mean, that's what we needed. We needed the first example to for the precedent, and they've survived. So it's a great precedent. Definitely good times. Well, let's talk about your rare Pepe you made, a Pepe Thug Life. So when you found Rare Pepes, what made you decide to go ahead and create your own, and what was the inspiration?
Well, I think the same thing that's motivated me in many ways as well is just like being part of an early cool scene, being part of a cool scene early, right? Like I've been a part of a lot of weird, cool scenes early. And this was no different in that I just wanted to to some degree the bragging rights, but also just to participate and like wrap my head around it. So I created this guy. I mean, you can probably edit and put the GIF on top, like overlay it.
Yeah.
So I'll let you do that. So that's Pepe Thug Life, card number like 300. I think it's a Series 7 card. It's got originally it was published with I think like 265 or 256 supply. Later on, I destroyed 101 units, and then I burned a couple of others in different pieces, like collaborative pieces that I made or special pieces that I made. And so the supply is like close to 150, which is it's good for NFTs. NFTs with low caps are generally trade a lot better, and a lot more people are a lot more interested in them. And I mean, the art has to be good, but it helps a lot the price if the supply is also tight, and it also helps it go viral because people are proud to have it, because they're difficult to get, so they'll share them. So it helps adds to their virality to have a low cap. So anyway, so that's more or less the supply, and I've done a bunch of stuff with it that I think a lot of people are not aware of. So I'm working on a website. It's going to be pepe.wtf. That's going to be coming on and sort of talking about a lot of the different things that are included in this piece of art now. But if you print the main frame, like this frame of of PEPETHUGLIFE, and you download the Artivibes app, you get this magic. It's weird magic.
That's awesome.
And that's augmented reality art. So that's one of the dimensions of this piece that I think a lot of people are not aware of. And then there's other stuff that I've done with it. For example, this piece is the first Pepe that made it into the Liquid network. So I created a kind of like a magic ritual. It's called Liquid Pepe, and Liquid network is like a side chain of Bitcoin that has different scalability and privacy dynamics, and
it's Blockstream's private network.
That's right. It's Blockstream's private network. Yeah. And so I managed to, through a burn ritual, I moved a Pepe to the Liquid network, and to my knowledge, nobody else has done that with the Rare Pepe to the Liquid network. It's been done to some degree with Ethereum, in different ways, but yeah, I'll share the article with you as well, so you can have a look at it. And that piece sold all right, and it kind of made some waves, created some new technology. We saw that kind of path to cross chains for an NFT with ordinals, where some of these Ethereum collectors, NFT collectors, were burning punks and other sort of high value assets and reminting them on ordinals. So to my knowledge, I was one of the first to do this with NFTs, though it was using like an old burn cryptography sort of tool, I guess, or tactic that was kind of known in the industry. But to my knowledge, is one of the first times it was done with NFTs across chains. So that's fun. That's another sort of little piece of history there.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't know that there were any NFTs on Liquid. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's a whole NFT thing called Rare Toshi that has just Liquid native NFTs. I also made a physical version of PEPETHUGLIFE in collaboration with Johnny Dollar, who's one of my favorite Bitcoin artists, and I'll send you the link as well. And this was kind of like, so Johnny Dollar created a physical version of PEPETHUGLIFE, kind of like in this special material in kind of black and white. I'm not sure exactly what material it is. And then we embedded, we like attached an OpenDime hardware device to it. And then I sent we associated basically a unit of PEPETHUGLIFE with that, and that sold on Scarcity as well, and it's somebody has it. So this also has like a signed copy of the NFT, etc. So that's an attempt to like materialize the NFT, right? Like make it material, which is sort of incarnate the NFT, which is also kind of a fun artistic project. Let's see what else. And then there's also this guy. So Mike in Space was behind Stamps, stampchain.io, I think it is. He created a collection called Shadylay, which is kind of a meme. So it's an important meme in the Pepe history, like the Rare Pepe meme history. Turns out somebody made a song with this, or an album with this logo, more or less, in like the 70s, and it has a really cool song, and it's kind of part of those, it's part of that mimetic cult following history of Pepe. And so PEPETHUGLIFE was burned to mint, I think, like 100 of these, and also on Counterparty, and it's also an augmented reality piece. So if you get this, see,
yeah, there it goes. That's awesome.
Basically, Rare Pepe time traveling to visit his ancestor by smoking a lot of weed.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. I like the Rare Shadowlay stuff.
Yeah, and the song is super fun. So
yeah,
there's that.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn. I don't pick up a lot of physical stuff, but I'd like to eventually get one of those records. I know they're getting pretty scarce and
Oh, I bet they
expensive.
are. Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet they
so
are.
so when you created it at first, was what was the reaction to your to Pepe Thug Life? Did you sell quite a few and then just move on, or did you like?
Yeah, I mean, when I originally made him, there wasn't a whole lot in terms of sales. Like you'd see one
Mhm,
or another here and there, but a lot of it was trading. So I think I traded like 100 of them, or at
mhm,
least the 50 of them. I traded with other people. I got a few Pepe cents. I got a few random ones. I
mhm.
got some no fat Pepes. And just kind of like built a small collection, and then yeah, people are like, oh, that's really cool, whatever, but it wasn't what NFTs are today, right? Like everybody, not everybody, but the word NFT is big. It's a big name now. Like people have heard of it. A lot of people have heard of it. So at that moment, nobody knew about it. It's just like a very niche group of maybe a few thousand people that had awareness of it. And then even a lot of the Bitcoiners didn't know that that was a thing. And maybe some of them started kind of like peeking in and such. But for a Bitcoin native movement, it's very funny to me how many people have no idea that there's frogs inside of Bitcoin. um and that just tickles me, man. I love that. That's just so funny.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I was surprised, how I'd missed the whole counterparty scene over the years. I had seen it on Coin Market Cap towards the top, but I never actually like dug in. I just always faded it for some reason, when I was always checking the prices. And
Sure.
yeah, I mean, I think to this day that still people don't realize that, well, one of the things that was surprising with the kind of the marketing around ordinals is that a lot of people that and I would assume is probably similar with the stamps too, is that a lot of people like think that this is the first time that there's NFTs on Bitcoin and aren't aware of the previous efforts with with
I know.
Counterparty and Ascribe and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, definitely fun.
Yeah. Yeah, people were, it's gonna keep happening because new people come in and they have a whole universe to explore, so yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I mean, you did some trading and you've done some really cool projects with your Pepe. You have any other plans in mind, regarding maybe your website or anything like that?
I mean, there's a lot of ideas that I have. As
Yeah.
far as plans go, oh yeah, we're working on an auction. This one's coming up in Miami, and I'll send you the asset so that you can overlay it. I think I can do a screen share actually for this. I'll just do a little screen share and show you this. Um, Compartir pantalla. Oh, you got
I
to give
think
me
I need to give you,
powers.
yeah, I have to give you
Yeah.
permission. Hold on. Okay, you should be able to now.
All right. So this is a collaboration with Lena, who's a really incredible artist. She makes kind of like tennis shoe art. So we're making a Pepe Thug Life branded tennis shoes.
That's sick.
I don't know if you can hear the audio, but
No, I couldn't hear the audio, but that certainly looks sick.
yeah. So stay tuned for that. We're gonna be launching it soon, and that's gonna be auctioned in Miami through Scarcity's collaboration with Bitcoin Magazine, and you'll be able to bid on it online with lighting and such. And it's also going to be like a in real life auction at the same time. So that's I'm excited about that. You're going to get custom fitted tennis shoes branded around Pepe Thug Life,
Is that a one
and
of
you're
one,
going to
or is that
get
a or is there going to be more than one available?
so this is definitely going to be the first and possibly the only one. I don't know if we're going to do more. It depends if
Okay.
people really like it, but either way, this is going to be kind of like the first edition. And this one comes with a Pepe Thug Life NFT. So if you buy this bundle, you'll get custom fitted Pepe Thug Life tennis shoes, and you'll get a Rare Pepe Thug Life unit of Rare Pepe Thug Life.
That's sick, man.
Yeah. So that's, yeah. So stay tuned for that. Follow me on Twitter and keep an eye on that. Follow Lena on Twitter. She's an incredible artist. That's Lenal. I'll send you a link of her stuff as well. Okay. And yeah, I'm definitely very excited about that.
That's a fun project.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fun. You know, like while everybody's trying to put their Pepes on the time chain, you know, we're putting Pepes on your tennis shoes.
Yeah.
I can smoke that. Put that on the chain and smoke it, you know? So.
I mean, speaking of, I mean, you've been following, you know, the crypto scene and Bitcoin closely for a long time. So what's your take on the whole ordinals and Bitcoin stamp scene? I mean, this is really fresh. I mean, this has emerged in the last few months. So.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it feels like littering, you know, like in a way that Counterparty never quite did, because, you know, Counterparty assets were prunable and, you know, they were really let's say more sustainability minded, in the sense that they were trying to conserve space, and like they were, you know, limiting themselves to 80 bytes per return opt space. Like they were really trying to be minimalist, having a minimalist impact on the blockchain, right? Whereas Ordinals just doesn't give a shit. They're just filling up the blocks, and or at least trying to, you know, and then further than that, Stamps has taken an approach that is not prunable, and that is can, you know, to some degree also can fill the blocks, and so there's a kind of disregard for the scalability of Bitcoin or the impact. But at the same time, you know, if JPEGs on the time chain is the thing that kills Bitcoin because of it makes it unscalable, then it was already doomed, you know, from the beginning. So yeah. I'm not worried about it. I think the reality is Bitcoin transactions will have to compete in price with JPEGs. And if Bitcoin is valuable, it should price out 90% of the JPEGs. And then if you want to put a JPEG, you're going to have to outcompete the demand for economic throughput in Bitcoin in order to get your JPEG on the time chain. So, you know, so I'm not too worried about it, but I also still feels like it's littering, you know, like I feel like I'm, you know, like I'm just dumping waste on a river, you know. So I don't know. I'm not sure about it. I might change my mind. I definitely like the fact that it becomes immortalized, you know. So if I like right now, my JPEG, my PEPETHUGLIFE is on IPFS, and the same hash that's used in IPFS, or I think that the IPFS link, which contains a hash of the original asset in its original resolution, that is stamped on the Bitcoin blockchain through Counterparty. So to me, that's kind of good enough. Like that's a pretty tight cryptographic link. But the idea of having the picture immortalized on the Bitcoin blockchain in a non-prunable way, I do get the appeal. Like that is powerful. It's like timeless, you know? So yeah, maybe I'll become persuaded to do it on Stamps, probably not on Ordinals. But quite possibly on Stamps. So we'll see what happens. If people want me to do that, I can consider it further, and maybe yeah, anyway, we'll see what happens there.
I mean, I think between the two, you know, ordinals of these projects came first, and you know, I mean, that was a really big deal when it came out, but which is cool, you know. But the fact that if you're going for something for permanence, I mean, I think Stamps fits the bill better. I'm kind of like you. It reminds me of reading about the early like the early Counterparty and even the early like gaming attempts on Bitcoin and all these other projects where, you know, a lot of the maxis like, you know, didn't want any spam on the chain and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, and, you know, in my own, like just thinking about it too, is that, you know, yeah, this puts more pressure, like fee pressure on the blockchain. And maybe like one of the, you know, it reminds me of the scaling wars too, is that, you know, like there's essentially infinite demand depending on the price that you have these transactions at. So I mean, we could keep adding size to the chain, and it would theoretically still get filled if there's enough demand. So I mean, it's a lot of like pros and cons in all of this, but I think it's interesting
Mm.
to see it play out. I mean, it's super cool technology.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, who knows what kind of utility it's going to have in the future? Who knows where it's going to go? I think a lot of people think that it's a fad, and it's been 8 years now that there's been NFTs.
Mm-hmm. Well,
2016 was the Rare Pepe, and then even further. I mean, if you do go historical, it's been even longer, and NFTs have now survived the major bear market.
yeah,
And if you include Rare Pepes from the 2017 bull run, then that's two bear markets. So no other crypto asset class, or very few, have survived multiple bear markets. Privacy coins have survived multiple bear markets. Really, only just Monero, right? ICOs died in the first bear market. The altcoin boom died in the first bull market. ICOs in the second one. And then we had the whole like DAO NFT security, like crazy, like there's some crazy projects in Ethereum that were like, well, what if you like NFTs are really valuable, so we'll put a bunch of NFTs inside of a DAO, and then we'll calculate the NAV, like the net asset value of this collection, and then we'll issue a token that should trade against the net asset value. Then you can trade the token on, right? And it's just
yeah,
this huge
yeah.
construction on top of a bunch of JPEGs that were like overvalued. So of course, bear
You
market
know,
came and all of that collapsed. But
that's what I initially thought. I initially thought that's what they were going to do with that uh, um, with the I'm spacing on the guy's name, the who made Pepe the Frog.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, what's his name? Matt Fury.
yeah, Matt Fury. Yeah, I'm under the weather right now, but
Yeah, he tried to
yeah,
do something like that. Yeah.
yeah. So that was my understanding. The way they initially sold that first card, I thought what they were trying to do is establish a DAO, like dump like 99 of the cards in the DAO, sell one at an overly inflated price on the market, and use that in order to have a artificially high, like you said, NAV of this vault, and then like you said, be able to use that to fund interesting things. And then they ended up not doing that and just completely, you know, burning everyone. So
That's hilarious. And they like, what happened to all that supply? Because that's a nice card. Like, it's a legit nice
well, I
card.
mean,
I think it was.
the other thing that was controversial that I didn't like about it at the time too is that it was a burn down. So he was given 500 supply and he burned it down to 100, and then he
Right.
didn't give any to the scientists that held the card for him or kept the project
Yeah,
alive. So he
sure.
only he sold one, and then I think all the other ones were given to heads owners or something like that. But I
Right.
don't know. I don't. I didn't like the way that was handled. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
initially I thought it was going to be super clever way, like you said, of when because first he the way the marketing was, yeah, we're just going to sell this one card, and the owner actually sued because it was so misleading. I don't know where that lawsuit ended up, but
Huh.
yeah, he sued because he felt it was misrepresentation in terms of what happened, because they can use
Wow.
the way I read it too also was essentially, yeah, we're selling this one card, the rest are going in this DAO, and this is your one opportunity. And then they change their tune and like, oh yeah, well, all these members of the DAO get their own card, and then it hits the market. And this guy, I think he paid something like, I want to say 300 or maybe even 500,000 for that one card. And now it's just, you can imagine what happens when the rest of those hit the market. So
Yeah, that's hilarious. Oh my God. So many people got smoked. This last bull market is
yeah,
fucking glorious. Like, just
yeah,
completely devastated. I can't
it's
even.
yeah, it's really wild. I mean, I kind of like you, um it's you know, it's definitely here to
Unreal.
stay since it's survived multiple bear markets. And I guess to wrap up
Yeah.
the conversation about those blockchain projects, I mean, um, I think even for I think there's a powerful, it's really powerful to be able to either store a document or, like you said, even just the hash of a document. It doesn't have to be a JPEG, but on the Bitcoin blockchain, it's super powerful, technology. I could see that for, if people want to release something that truly like is uncensorable, that's the way to do it, bam.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah. It's artistically, it's very, very interesting.
yeah,
Um, yeah. We'll see
but
what, if any more utility comes out of it, but
yeah, I mean, I think there is a good, like, one system I think is really interesting. I think is probably going to catch on in the future is for whether it's going to be fake rares. They already have one that's doing it, but where they you can have the fake rare as stamp, and then you can use Counterparty for the token issuance. So it's pretty sweet. But like you said,
right.
it's super expensive and has its own limitations.
So
But
stamps only does like, graphing the image into the blockchain, but it doesn't do tokenization. So that's what Counterparty does.
yeah, so
Like,
the stamps project as is, so it's kind of a meld. So they're using Counterparty for the tokenization. So you can issue whether you do a single or you do 1,000 or 1,000,000 or whatever it is. You're using Counterparty for the handling the token. So it has an advantage over the ordinals in the sense that you don't have to rely on like ordinal theory and tracking it through that. I mean,
right.
Counterparty is its own system that's been around for a long time. So you know, if you agree with the rules of Counterparty that have been around forever, then
Right.
different consensus mechanisms, but it doesn't require tracking an individual sat,
Right.
theoretically. So
Right.
yeah,
Are fake rares still, like, is that collection still open? There's still
yeah. There's
spots.
it's still going. I'm trying to. I'm working on trying to get another submission here relatively soon. But yeah, that's still going. Yeah,
You got to get a fake rare or like a
a
fake as
fake.
fuck or something.
Yeah. The fake ASF, you've got to burn one of those if your card is accepted. So
Right.
that's their burn ritual, instead of the
Gotcha.
Pepe cash.
Yeah. I recently acquired a fake Genesis, which I quite like. I don't know if you've seen it. Fake
Let me,
Genesis is
let me pull that up. It sounds
it's a
familiar.
it's a beautiful card, and I want to buy the print.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's iconic, man. Yeah, that's
That's
great.
iconic, yeah. Yeah.
Man, that's on my
It's a
to-do
beautiful
list. I
piece.
really want to get one of those.
I know.
I mean, Pep Nardo does amazing work, and to me,
Amazing work.
that's one of his best ones too. I mean, all of
Yeah.
his stuff is great, but I mean, that's super dope.
Yeah, he's got the prints on sale at Bitcoin Magazine for like 250, 250
Mhm.
bucks. It's really tempting. Really,
Yeah,
really tempting.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
they're numbered prints too, right?
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, I think he's going to be, he's going to go down as one of the most, iconic artists for fake rares after this is
Mm-hmm.
all wrapped up for sure. I mean, his
For
work is
sure.
is spectacular. And I don't know if you saw the news, but last night? His other painting, Fake Science, the original oil painting, sold for just over 4 BTC at Scarce
Yeah.
City. Yeah,
Fuck, dude. That's crazy, man.
yeah. I
That's
mean,
amazing.
hats off to him. That's another amazing piece too. So
Yeah, that is great. And it's very good for Bitcoin that there's this level of art and culture
mhm.
in Bitcoin, like if you look at every bill, every US dollar bill, there's incredible art in it. If you look at fiat currencies in general, there's incredible art. I have a collection of fiat currency. If you give me a second, I'll show you
Yeah,
some.
sure.
And that to me says that there's something special there, that there's at least enough scale to have to have high quality art, and high quality
Yeah.
artists make a living. So, I mean, I got all kinds of stuff. You know, Bank of Myanmar, Naira, the $5 Naira is Bank of Nigeria, Pakistan. You know, like
Yeah.
I have some cool ones here that are like very unique. Central Bank of Peru, Philippines. Um,
I have I mean, I have a really kind of torn view on that in the sense that I I view this like the art as like for central bank currency is kind of as a ruse in order to give legitimacy to something that is truly abhorrent, you know, personally.
but look how pretty they are,
I know
man.
it is pretty. You know, I don't collect currency, but the one thing I bought off eBay years and years ago is I bought 10 of the $100 trillion Zimbabwe dollar notes
Right.
just so that I could say I'm a quadrillionaire. So
There you go. We're both
yeah.
quadrillionaires. I don't know. I mean, I think fiat currencies, there's kind of like a gravitational well of like a how to this is the only way that I know how to put it. It's like there's a game theory gravitational pull
Mhm.
that if you don't issue fiat currencies in the age of the invention of fiat currencies, then you're left behind. Kind of like AI.
Oh,
Like you got to
sure.
play with
Yeah.
AI. If you don't
Uh-huh.
integrate AI, AI will integrate you. You know, like if you don't become the master of your own set of AIs, the AIs will dominate you. So and
Well,
on behalf of other people pulling their strings. So I think it's the same thing with fiat, and Bitcoin changes the game, and that's why it's good. That's
yeah.
why it's important, because it changes the game. Technology changes the game. But the game at this era was this, you know, and so
Yeah,
to
to
some
your
degree, I
point,
think
yeah.
there's sympathy we can have there. But
It is game theory because if you're the only country still using hard money, they can cite like your trading partners can siphon away all your current hard money currency and you know what
yeah,
then?
yeah, I mean, you know, it's a complex topic, but I do like it's also historically interesting.
Yeah.
Like there's very important figures here, and also very controversial figures and so on. You know, it's kind of a mockery of itself in some cases. But
Yeah.
these two, for example, are straight up unique. And so
Uh-huh.
this is a $1 trillion Zimbabwe bill signed
Uh-huh.
by Adam Back. This is
Oh, no
Adam Back's
way.
signature.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
and then this is a Venezuelan Bolivar, a 2 Bolivar
Uh-huh.
bill signed by Peter Todd pretending to be Adam Back.
Oh, cool.
So that's those were one of a kind right there. That happened then at the unconfiscatable
Hmm.
two-tone bases unconfiscatable in Las Vegas. So
I
in
see you have a 10 you
2020.
have the $10 billion note. Do
Oh
you
yeah, it's a
have
10 billion. No, I don't have the trillion. You're right. That's a 10 billion. That's a 10 billion
yeah.
note. Ah, shit, I gotta get some trillions, man.
Yeah, some hundred
Hilarious.
trillions, man.
100 trillions, dude.
Yeah, I
Next
got
level.
100 trillion notes. So that's the highest denomination of any note ever as far as I'm aware. So that's why I thought it was funny. Like you can buy 10 of those and
That's
then you can
awesome.
say, yeah, then you can say you're a quadrillionaire, right? So
Oh, man, I'm gonna have to get some of those.
I don't know what they're going for now, but when I got them on eBay years ago, it was like, I don't know, $5 or
I
20
think they're
bucks or
like a
something.
hundred or $200 now. Eh? Like I mean, let's find out. Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of these trade for like at least $100 now. What is it? 100
100 trillion.
trillion
Yeah, Zimbabwe dollar.
Zimbabwe banknotes. $14. Okay, $100 trillion for $14. 19, 10, 20. There's one for 100. And $50 trillion seller uncirculated, allegedly uncirculated. Yeah,
Well,
one day I'm gonna throw $20 at this for
I
sure.
remember I saw back when those were still like trading or, you know, around the time they became like novelty pieces, you know, when they were still trading, but or had
Right.
just become demonetized. I mean, I saw pictures where people were basically able to get these like huge bricks of them just for essentially free. No one wanted it. It was
Yeah.
trash essentially. So, you know,
Fresh.
I
Yeah.
mean, the entrepreneurs were savvy enough to actually grab that stuff, hold on to it, and start selling them as singles, to nerds across this, over the ocean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hilarious that people pay $10 for them. They have more
Oh,
value
right.
now than they ever did.
I know exactly. They're way more valuable than they were back then.
So funny.
But you did touch on something else that I thought would be fun to discuss too, because I think we've seen such an explosion just in the last 18 months. Really, it's gone from kind of neat to like staggering in the use and the application for AI stuff.
Hold on, before we get into AI, I just want to
Yeah,
point something out that's kind of
yeah,
funny. A lot of the gold bugs will often make the case that gold is valuable because you can make art trinkets out of them and wear
yeah,
them
yeah.
around your neck and stuff, and that therefore it has intrinsic value because it has artistic value. They also say that it'll have intrinsic value because it has like manufacturing applications, which is
Mm-hmm.
like okay, But as far as artistic value goes, I mean, this has artistic value, you
Yeah,
know.
sure. Uh-huh.
Does that mean that fiat has intrinsic value? You
Yeah,
know,
I mean,
I mean,
and
there's
also,
frogs inside Bitcoin. Does that mean Bitcoin have intrinsic value?
yeah.
So
Well,
anyway,
I mean, and also meme power too with some of those currencies, like we were talking about, like to people that collect stuff, like the $100 trillion note is a meme in and of itself.
for sure.
Even in economic circles, it's yeah.
Yeah,
So
mimetic value.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. So I think it's interesting, like you said, some of the art on those paper notes, it is super cool, and it's fun to. I think another like layer of that too is it's fun to see what imagery they choose in order to represent basically authority or whatever they're trying to use to legitimize their paper currency too.
right. Yeah, yeah, and also like place the currency issuance in a historical context and iconize
Mm-hmm.
the people of that era, like the heroes of that
Yeah.
era, or bring to relevance heroes of a past era and like heal or change or reframe historical
Mm-hmm.
moments and narratives, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I love art. I think art is wonderful. Which brings us to AI, I suppose. There's all kinds of AI art happening and whatnot.
Yeah.
So take it away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've just over the past, I don't know, past 6 months, I started paying more attention to the AI stuff. And I was aware of it, but I had seen I've seen some early AI art and everything, but it's just, yeah, it seems really like last 6 to 18 months where we've seen systems really with the release of Chat GPT and also the newer like image processing and image generation AI models where it's gone from kind of like neat, and to me, I thought a lot of the images that were generated with the early AI stuff were kind of creepy. But we've bridged the gap from like being like interesting, weird, like creepy to like being a complete game changer on so many
Yeah,
fronts. It's
very fast.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know. What's the question? Like are artists screwed? um no, I love it. I people are so I wrote a piece of course about this juangalt.com, look up artificial intelligence and um
Do you do a
I have a
Substack?
whole yeah, I have a Substack. So but you can find it at juangalt.com and it'll take you there. And
Okay.
um, yeah, I've created. So I wrote one article about artificial intelligence, and then I did a podcast with another kid that's kind of a sort of a maverick with a very eccentric character in terms of AI, and we had a really interesting conversation about what AI means. Like, is it a god or is it a tool that we're projecting our divine spark into, or is it like really we really played with that question and kind of like did circles around it. So you can find it on juangalt.com. And then I'm gonna be playing. I mean, I'm playing with it, and I'm prepared. I'm building a rig right now just to start downloading all this AI shit and start playing with it. And I've been playing with it so far too. I mean, I got a subscription to ChatGPT 4. It's great, solves a
Yeah.
bunch of problems. Um, so, but I think what it is like it's a 10x. It's a
Mhm.
multiplier. It's an efficiency multiplier. So you integrate it and you can do 10 times more, and there's no capacity limit to how many things can be done, and
Mhm.
how much efficiency and opportunity there is. Like, opportunity is infinite and everywhere. And so
Mhm.
if you can pursue it 10 times faster, you can achieve 10 times more.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. And if there is an economic depression incoming, AI is the kind of technological innovation that can um shelter us, or like soften that blow and bounce us up.
Yeah.
um so it's very good timing. And Yeah, I mean, I think it's the most interesting thing, technology trend since Bitcoin in my lifetime. um so I'm very, very interested in it. We're like I think we need to we need to build sovereign AI technology, because
Yeah.
there's somewhat of an attempt to, like, I mean, they're never going to be able to regulate it, but they're going to attempt to put a fence around it
Mhm.
and then contain it within the top cloud providers. But you can run a ChatGPT clone on like 8 gigabytes of RAM on
Yeah.
a desktop or a window or a laptop. So we can bring this to local hosting hardware. Like, we can make this sovereign technology very quickly and build ourselves AI assistants that can do all kinds of shit for us. So um that's very powerful, very exciting,
Yeah, I'm with you. I've played around
very
with
interesting.
Chat GPT 4 and Midjourney and some of this other stuff, and like I'm already overdue to build a new workstation, and I'm planning, like, I want to get a 4090, which right now is the fastest NVIDIA card, normal
Yeah,
NVIDIA
yeah,
workstation card you can get.
that's a
So
good one.
yeah, I mean, I just so I can play with some of this stuff, because to your point, I think one thing that's frustrating is you get into certain things where even though ChatGPT 4 is capable of helping you with certain things, it's fenced off, or it censors or whatever. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
and we also just don't want to get into I don't know if monopoly is the right word, but we would have, if we allow corporations to run off with essentially the high tech of our time without it having an open source, or our own ability to utilize it has some terrible ramifications as well.
yep, yeah, 100%, a
But
hundred
yeah, like
percent.
you, I think I'm not worried, at least yet, about I view it kind of similar to how you do, is at least in my personal use. I've used it, and it's helped me with a couple projects that I've worked on. It's helped me, like, write you know a couple things I need to write, like,
Sure.
at least for me, when I've written articles or even academic papers or whatever, it's like I think I can write fairly well, but it's very time consuming. It takes me a
It
long
is,
time
yeah.
to write. So that's a time saver for me, and also for, like, I don't like, for art too, for stuff that I'm like, for stuff I'm working on, it allows people that are like people that are doing a side hustle, or doing some hobby work. It allows them the ability to have something that's, yeah, maybe it's not good enough as an artist, or like expressing the exact vision that they want, or what have you, but it allows them to, like, and same thing with like writing, or these similar boosts. It allows them to become much more productive, so much, like, like you said, a huge multiplier in your ability to operate.
Yeah, it's a game changer, man. Yeah, I mean, there's just like the most powerful AI stuff that I've heard of. There's two of them. One of them called Auto GPT, which like will have different models talk to each other, and then it can
Mhm.
talk to the internet, and like, you can just give it a task and it'll start churning and talking to itself, and getting to a goal. And then the other one is Hugging GPT, which is from Hugging Face,
I haven't
which is
heard
kind
that
of
one.
like an open source index environment of AI models. And
Mhm.
it's basically like a way, like, you give it a task and it'll combine all the AI models it needs to get it done. It's just,
No way. Jeez.
bonkers, dude. Completely bonkers. Yeah. Yeah, it's shit's getting real, man. And this is exactly the kind of innovation you need. I mean, again, like from a risk perspective,
Mhm.
there's like a dark side of GBT. There's something called chaos GBT,
Mhm.
which is like, how to fuck shit up with AI. But um but from an economic perspective, I mean, this is a huge innovation. This is like expanding the population of the world, right? Like
Mhm.
this is increasing the amount of intelligence in the world, except that it's just like amplifying the intelligence of its units, right? Of the people that are already
Yeah.
there, that are already on the edge. And Yeah, I mean, this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. And the key thing is fiat currencies and will continue to do what they've always done, which is siphon a a percentage of that innovation through inflation
Yeah.
in order to cover their shorts or their longs, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
To balance their books. They're gonna steal that through inflation. And so the economic efficiencies that AI creates are gonna be some degree stolen by the Fed through inflation. But with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is gonna let us capture
Yeah.
those gains. If you are in a Bitcoin standard and if Bitcoin continues to trade freely against fiat, then like it's a way for you to keep the gains of this economic
Yeah.
efficiency. If the economy
Mhm.
doubles in size, Bitcoin will at the very least double in size. But then if fiat like steals 50% of that, well, fiat won't double. It'll just go up 50%. But Bitcoin,
Mhm.
Bitcoin's trading against the economy, right? And so I don't know. I think there's an argument there for Bitcoin letting us keep part of that innovation.
I think one thing that's really interesting is, we've seen Bitcoin rally in the last few months from about 15,000 all the way to 30. And I think one of the things that I thought was most plausible as a reason why we've seen uh, such a rapid price rise quickly. I mean, outside you can attribute it to whatever market dynamics you want, but I think one thing that to me kind of rings true and has a lot of credibility is that we've FTX alone and a lot of these other fake exchanges were generating a tremendous amount of paper Bitcoin out there that
Yeah,
that never could have existed. So I think it's really interesting that
for
unless
sure.
we see some more BS exchanges come online, um, they're like the supply of Bitcoin is very minute. I mean, as we both know. So you know, yeah, I think to your point, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin would, it stands a much better chance of capturing that value and maintaining the value generate, right? Instead of seeing it inflate away.
Yeah, that they fucking stole our blow off top.
They sure did.
FTX and scam face, scam Bankman Freeman, what the fuck his name is. They stole our blow off top. The guy sold Bitcoin that they didn't have, and then stole our blow off top, and then wrecked the market. And I mean, the good news is that a lot of these Ponzi schemes that they were using to cover this up are getting kind of now harassed by the SEC, and that's kind of a good thing on my book. Ponzi schemes are not productive for society; they're predatory.
Well,
Um,
just like Madoff,
so
though, they're riding to the rescue after they already blew up. I mean,
yeah, of course.
yeah, way to go, guys.
Way to go, guys. Yeah, you're like years late, but nevertheless, they've arrived because they need political cover, right? Like American regulatory agencies are very reactive, so they need political cover. They need blood on the streets to paint them a red carpet, and then you
Well,
walk across it, and
well, I mean, you're more familiar with this, having been a reporter and whatnot. I mean, like I've always been like really disgusted with the SEC and the regulatory agencies in the U.S. and that they've clearly had an agenda to suppress crypto markets and crypto adoption. One recent, like we saw what happened to, you're familiar with what happened to Library recently, right?
yeah, they sued them for the token and called it a security, and
Yeah. I
What
mean,
happened?
so like library approached the SEC early on, like asked them for ways to comply, and the SEC wouldn't tell them. They even were offered to what give up all the tokens or whatever. I mean, they tried bent over backwards. The SEC not only wouldn't tell them a way that they like would be legally allowed to go through after they provided like a good faith effort of trying to like establish compliance. They were then sued by the SEC and basically run into the ground. So
Fuck.
yeah, I mean it's
Yeah, that's criminal, man. Like that's just that's not fair. That's
and
definitely
you
not
know
fair.
I bought a little bit of library early on, just a token amount, because I thought the project, regardless of whether it succeeded or not, because again with crypto you can easily clone a project and run it up. But I thought the utility was worthwhile. I mean they were aiming to be an early decentralized content platform, kind of like a YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
type thing, which I thought was super cool. And we've seen some legit content that needs to be uncensored on a censorship resistant platform published there. So which is cool. So I mean,
Yeah. No, I like it as a project. It's cool. I like it
yeah,
too. It's
I
yeah. I
just
mean, it's a shame that they're definitely a victim of this. I don't know. I don't know the details of their ICO or like their launch. I think there is a case for like not doing ICOs and just doing like fair emission, like proof of work emissions, with zero founder share and such.
I mean it
I
just
don't
makes it
know what the
incredibly
details were
difficult
there.
though for a team to how is a team going to bootstrap, like that was the whole one of the brilliant things of being able to ICO or being able to launch your own coin
Mm-hmm.
with a pre-mine like Ethereum did. Is that's part of how you bootstrap the actual finances of the project. And if you can't do a pre-mine, you know
Well, no, I mean Bitcoin wasn't pre-mined, then it was bootstrapped, and Monero wasn't pre-mined, then it was bootstrapped.
I,
BitTensor, like
exactly.
there,
But this is
but
for this
I
is
think
for
the
like
key,
corporate
well,
for profit.
corporate
you
can
know
just issue stock. If you're incorporated, just issue equities. Just
yeah.
do capital raise from venture capitals and capitalists. Or like do like there are paths for small investors to invest in startups and companies today and do proper risk disclosures. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
And so you do proper risk disclosure. You don't do fancy FOMO marketing, and then you make it fairly distributed so that it looks like a crypto commodity, not like a crypto security, right? And I think that's the area where, again, like I can't speak this specific situation, but um pre-mines are equities,
Yeah.
and that's just the bottom line. And the SEC now has a red carpet to prosecute. They're not gonna go after Ethereum. Very unlikely. If they do, it would be a war of titans, and I would very much buy popcorn to watch it happen. But um, they have a real problem, because if they don't go after SEC after Ethereum, then what credibility do they have? How can they go for, sorry, helicopter? Yeah, if they don't go after Ethereum, which is like the most clear, like it's most certainly by most definitions a security, you get dividends
Mhm.
for staking, right? Like that's
Yeah.
security level stuff. In the pre-mine 70%, and like the whole security system is built on top of staking and getting dividends. So like if they don't go after Ethereum, they have no moral authority to go after anybody else, but they don't need moral authority. They have power, and so they're just
Yeah. I
gonna keep
mean,
going. But
I guess like again, the specifics of library are kind of really beside the point. Like what I guess the way I see it and my concern is that these agencies are not operating on good faith and are being politically
no,
directed are being politically
no, of course
directed
not.
or yeah, to
No,
crush
they
them.
work for Wall Street. They're
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
they're they're the attack dog of Wall Street. That's just
Hmm.
They were created by Wall Street. They are funded by Wall Street, right? They're
Yeah.
gonna they're gonna work for Wall Street. So It is what it is. I mean, but the fact that they have somebody to attack is the problem. You know, the fact that they can go after anybody at all is proof that a lot of these things aren't decentralized.
Yeah.
And so they are being sold under false pretenses. And so so they kind of fall on their own merit. I'm not one of those like, you know, like crypto and Bitcoin are, the same thing. We got to join together. No. Crypto is a very separate and different thing than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We're brothers, like Cain and Abel were brothers. It's like Cain is an asshole, right? And there's like, there's instances of crypto that I like, that I think are good and like done honestly, and they're also useful. Very few of them. I can count them with my hands. But they do exist. So I think we need to. That's why I make the crypto commodity versus crypto security distinction, which I also wrote an article about. You can find it at juangalt.com under regulation. But yeah, 90% of these things are straight up Ponzi schemes, and they are predatory and
for sure. I mean, I guess the other thing I'd say too is that it's kind of worrying when, like you said, there are very few that are truly decentralized. Like you said, Bitcoin, Monero. There's just a true handful that are, that obviously aren't, a facade for a centralized entity or group of people. Yeah. But then going after the Tornado Cash developers, they weren't making any money off that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Being prosecuted for generating code, and just pushing it to a repo, that's not good.
No, it's not good. I mean, we're in the they attack you stage.
Yeah.
And we'll see who survives. It's they can't come after all of us, but they're gonna go after some of us.
So. Yeah, like you said, they're gonna bloody some noses. I mean, they'll go for scalps for sure, and they're gonna
get some.
They'll have some winners too. They'll win a few.
Yeah, they're gonna win a few.
Yeah.
They're also gonna lose a few. So it's gonna be
for sure.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, like to your point too, I think Ethereum is a great example of, if you want to like use these legacy views of, and again, I think that's part of the problem is you're using these. Well, one, I don't really respect the institution of the SEC and their mission, right? I think it's been completely perverted, but even going by the letter, like the way those statutes were originally written are so broad that essentially everything falls on, can be classified as security almost. It's
right.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah. But
yeah, I there's an argument to be made there. I think I'm very Nietzschean in this sense. Like all narratives are a cover for power, and I don't think this is the complete truth, but it's true often enough. And and so the process of decentralization is the process of removing power from centralized parties that have that power. And you do that by changing the game such that the power balance shifts to the edges rather than to the center. But that means that power needs to, that means that the individuals need to get empowered, need to rise in their personal power in order for the centers to lose power. And so from a personal perspective, we need to play our best game in order to resist and hold back the centers from capturing us, right?
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of ways we can do that, and that's to some degree my vision with my work, my writing right now is like, how do we build a positive future with the technology that we have, that in a way that serves the best in humanity and serves the best of us and serves a future where people, like there's strong happy families, like that we don't have to live in a dystopia in a fucking box eating worms, right? We can have farms and artificial technology, intelligence and Bitcoin and robots. We can have it all. We can fucking do it, but we need to be very intentional and pragmatic, and thoughtful about it. And we gotta accept that we can't control the SEC. All we can do is like minimize our vulnerabilities to the SEC, and you know, and or whatever watchdog is, you know, has anointed themselves with the power to screw you, right? And
I think one of the big, like,
that's it.
yeah, I mean, like, I like the way you described decentralization. I guess the other aspect of that I guess I would say is that the way I see it is that we're part of this is like, I also think that things can work out for the best. Like, I'm not like, granted, there are some serious threats ahead of us. I mean, that could go bad, but I'm an optimist, and what I see going on right now is this on a global macro scale, and but also down to the local scale. We're seeing across society and governments and every aspect of life. We're seeing essentially the like the veil of corruption being lifted, like these false fronts and pretenses for legitimacy that never deserved it. So that's where we're seeing whether it's military, corporate, economic. We're seeing like all of these for people that are paying attention and reading like legitimate media. Like there's a lot of like extremely interesting and provoking stories that are like stripping any shred of legitimacy that these centralized institutions have claimed, right? So I think so. I'm hoping that on a global scale, it doesn't have to be one thing. It's people in a collective becoming more aware of like you said, like their own power and autonomy, and just organically we're going to see some of that power. I mean, again, it won't be 100% puppies and rainbows, but shift back to individuals and back to smaller, away from the center, like you said.
Yeah.
But I mean, the first step is that awareness, right? Is that
Yeah.
The game's rigged. Like these people aren't here to help you. I mean,
Totally. No, I mean the SEC has a will of its own and probably its own puppet masters. So don't be fooled by that. That's for sure.
yeah. Don't wait for Big Daddy government to come help you.
They're not gonna come help you. No. No, this is the era of like, I mean, in a way, it is the era of the sovereign individual. Like you really have to watch your own back, and it's hard. But that's where we like. I remember so much. Thomas Hunt was interviewing. Well, had invited me to his show
Yeah.
during COVID, like early
Mm-hmm.
COVID, and the markets had mega dumped, and then we were already like they dumped and they were on a bull run now. Like this is past the COVID crash. And I remember thinking like we've peaked. Like I felt this, like we've
Yeah.
peaked. Like it's gonna be a while before we see real highs like this. Because if you remember the pre-COVID era, you
Yeah.
know, like I went to Burning Man in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
That was magnificent. Like Burning Man was the pinnacle of artistic expression and like elitist, playground. It was wonderful. Burning Man was fantastic. If you get a chance to go. But there was also a sense of peace. Like we knew shit was gonna hit the fan at some point. Everybody kind of had a sense of it, at least people that I talked to. But the shit hadn't hit the fan yet. And
Mm-hmm.
then COVID just accelerated all of that, right? Like, so now we're like, at the brink of global war, and like banks are failing, and like we we survived COVID, but now there's this terrible precedent of bio warfare being not only functional but profitable, and people being, you know,
Yeah. I
manipulable enough that they'll hide in, out of neurosis in their houses for years, and even, you know
I think
die of isolation before they die of the flu. So,
I mean that's one of the most
hard
explosive.
times.
Yeah, that's one of the most explosive stories that people who've paid attention have suspected and have known that there's been some nefarious work going on in the biodefense. Well, let's not call it biodefense, the biowarfare sector for a long time. But now we actually have documents proving that this is all like state manufactured soup to nuts, and we still have mainstream media and governments refuse to acknowledge that. I mean, this is one of the most significant things that's happened to humanity, and this is all driven by the government slash intelligence agencies slash whatever. I mean, we still don't, I mean, you know, the full scope of who is pulling the strings, we still don't really know, a couple layers out, right? But we definitely know, this is man-made. I mean, it's scandalous. People died, hundreds,
Yeah.
think of the huge impacts. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
anyway, so sorry, but yeah, but I'm optimistic. I that sounds like an amazing
Yeah.
experience though, to have had that before the everything went to shit.
Yeah. That was fun. Yeah, Burning Man will come back. I think there's already been two Burning Mans since post COVID. So there was an anarchist Burning Man, which was like an non-officially, like
Uh-huh.
an unofficial Burning Man. And
Uh-huh.
then I think there's a new recent one too, or there's going to be this year anyway. But
Oh,
um,
well, I guess one other thing I forgot to bring up is um or was there something else you wanted to say about that?
no, go for it.
I was I looked up your YouTube channel and I saw that you had been interviewed by HBO about your the
Right.
ANCAP movement. Did you
Yeah.
want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, this is another weird niche community that I got into early, and yeah. So I mean, it's a bunch of anarchists, libertarian anarchists in Mexico, and it was fun and interesting and crazy and dangerous. Somebody got killed.
Oh, no way.
There's multiple deaths involved. Um, so yeah, if you wanna, it's like Lord of the Flies meets anarcho capitalism,
Uh,
and in real life in Mexico and on the beach, with drugs and shit coins, and HBO published it, right? Somebody produced it and they sold it to HBO. So now there's a 6-part documentary on HBO about the Anarchapulco, phenomena, the anarchists in Mexico. And
that's
I'm
awesome.
one of the characters in it. I was interviewed because I was there and I kind of got to see the whole thing, um, you know, happen. And so yeah, you can check that out on HBO. You know, uh, it's pretty good. It's really interesting. It's really thought provoking. Everybody that watches it, we end up having a conversation about philosophy and morality and politics, and what's good and bad about it. Because it isn't. There is no black and white in this picture. It's a
Mhm.
full shade of gray with rainbows and colors and different geometric figures. So, it's a good show. If it's worth paying for a month of HBO. I would say
Yeah,
that.
I'll definitely check that out. I remember seeing the some of the promotions for that event, and I never made it out to go see it myself. But maybe in the future I'll be able to catch it. It sounded like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Cool. Let me know what you think, man.
Yeah. Well, I know I've taken a bunch of your time. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, or any thoughts about where
No,
crypto
no, I
or
think it's
NFTs are
been
going?
yeah, I think it's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Follow me on Twitter and let's let's stay in touch. If anybody wants to talk to me about whatever or come up with collaborative ideas or want to have something that you think my podcast would be good for, like interesting guest, I'm an open book. Reach out to me on, well, not an open book, but I got open doors. So reach out to me on Twitter and thanks for having me on, man. It's been a really interesting conversation, really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.